Pinocchio, Part 1. Once upon a time, a piece of wood lay in the shop of a poor old carpenter. Geppetto, for that was a carpenter's name, had got the notion to he hoped was fetch enough money to buy his supper. No sooner he had applied these tools to the wood than a voice rose from right out of it. Ouch! Do not strike me too hard. So hard. Geppetto paused, but thinking this voice was a trick of his mind, he continued to shave and carve. No sooner had he carved a pair of the legs than the puppet kicked him in the shin quite sharply. Ouch! Said Geppetto, but thinking the marionette must have slipped from his grasp, the carpenter proceeded to carve the puppet's eyes. Only when those eyes opened did Geppetto understand, so magic was afoot. Who are you? The puppet asked, and Geppetto told him his name. Are you my father? It asked. I suppose so, said Geppetto, if a puppet can have a father. What are these? asked the puppet, looking down at his knees. So Geppetto explained about legs and all their uses. The puppet bent its new legs back and forth, then stood and soon was running all about the small ground for room, quick as a cat. Slow down, you're making me dizzy, said Geppetto, but the puppet laughed and ran in circles. Would you like a name? Wouldn't you like a name? Geppetto asked at last. The puppet stopped. Yes, I must have a name, an even better one than yours. When Geppetto thought what all the children she'd known who did well for themselves, he remembered one boy with a particularly bright smile and a good heart. Pinocchio. I will name you Pinocchio. Pinocchio will be your name, he said, and you will behave like a good boy and go to school every day. Of course, Pinocchio knew nothing about school. So Geppetto proceeded to tell him while Pinocchio settled in the workbench and complimented his father's work. I should like to go to school and learn to be good, he said at last, but I haven't any spelling book. And I have no money to buy one, said Geppetto. Pinocchio grew very sad then. He began to mew and moan. Suddenly, Geppetto stood up from his workbench and grabbed his coat. Stay where you are, dear Pinocchio. I will return as quick as I can. Then he left Pinocchio all alone. After what seemed like a terribly long time, Geppetto returned, a spelling book in his hand and no coat at all on his back. Here you, son, he said, placing the book on the table. Pinocchio noticed Geppetto's rubbing his bare arms. Papa, your coat, what happened? I've sold it, said Geppetto. Why, Papa? Geppetto shrugged. Because, well, I found it too hot. Pinocchio understood then that Geppetto had sold his only coat to buy him the book. Oh, thank you, said Pinocchio, throwing his arms around the old man's neck and kissing his cheeks. I'll be the best boy in the whole school. You're not a boy at all, Geppetto laughed. Still, I'm glad you're my son. The next morning, Pinocchio followed the children through the snow, noting as he went how every one of them had some kind of coat on him, except himself. Did not feel the cold. The story skipped along. considering all the clothes he would buy Geppetto once he had learned to be clever. But as he turned the corner, young Pinocchio heard the call of melodious pipes and string trumpet beats, and was filled with longing. Turning away from the children, he thought, perhaps I will go to school tomorrow, and let the music lead him into the festival theater, where people are lined up outside. What does that sign say? Pinocchio asked the woman in line. You blockhead, she replied. It says great marionette show today. Admission to a pence. Pinocchio grew frantic, so he did not want topaz. For he did not have twopence. I must get in, he cried. Oh, I'd give anything. Hearing him, a peddler approached and said, in the most cajoling voice, how about I give you twopence for the spelling book? Pinocchio took the topaz from the peddler's open palm, and then with hardly a thought of his poor shivering father, handed over the spelling book. Inside, people sat on rows of benches before a raised stage, laughing at the marionette strings. One looked at Pinocchio, however, walking into the theater without any strings at all. The marionettes ceased to play with their parts. Then began at first to whisper, then a shout. A burly man with a long black beard and a heavy whip stepped on stage, and cracked his whip, pointing the handle at Pinocchio. You, showstopper, over here. Finding his legs quickly shaking, Pinocchio climbed on stage as he'd been told. The blurry man, whose name was Fire Eater, grabbed Pinocchio by the nose. You'll keep the hall warm tonight, he said, and he slung the poor puppet into his shoulder. Carrying him backstage for the Fernandes, the marionettes quivered and cried in symphony as Fire Eater raised Pinocchio up to throw him into the flames. Papa, please save me, Pinocchio cried. At this, Fire Eater paused. Then he sneezed. Oh, that's a good sign. And said one of the marionettes. If he sneezes, that means he bites you. Fire Eater sneezed again. Bless you, Pinocchio said. Who is this Papa you speak of? Fire Eater demanded. Pinocchio told him about Geppetto, who had brought him to life, and sold his own coat to buy him a spelling book. Despite his tall temper, Fire Eater did not have a very bad a heart. Upon hearing Pinocchio's description of his papa, he handed over 5 gold pieces and said, Bring these to your poor good father, and don't delay. Oh, thank you, Pinocchio cried, and waving goodbye, he left the theater once for all, without so much as a scorch mark on him. Soon he was skipping merrily down the lane toward home. He had hardly made into the lamppost when he met a fox with a lame foot and a cat who was blind in both eyes. The 2 animals leaned on one another like good companions in misfortune. Good evening, Pinocchio, said the fox. But how do you know my name? Pinocchio asked. We are friends with your father, said the cat. Then you'll be happy to learn of the gift he's about to receive, cried Pinocchio, and he jingled 5 gold pieces in his pocket. The fox stepped closer. That sounds like a fair sum. Wouldn't you like to double it? Surely, but I haven't time for delays, Pinocchio replied. I must get home to Papa, said the cat. With twice as much, you could buy anything Geppetto needs, and whatever you need too. 500 times as much, if one really computates, said the fox. Quite so, said the cat. But how? Asked Pinocchio. The fox's eyes got very big, and his voice dropped to a whisper. The field of wonders, and the water, and 2 pails of water, and 2 pinches of salt. In the morning you'll find a tree with gold coins of blossoms. However many coins you have, said the cat, that's how many trees you'll grow to harvest. And every tree bears 100 coins, added the fox. Pinocchio clapped his hands. Dear friends, I must see the field of wonders. Won't you please take me there? At once, certainly, said the cat, and they blindfolded Pinocchio and led him away.